great new frontier kind of stuff, and we want to try to make sure that we're providing a lot of value to you guys and helping you with the myriad of questions or concerns that you have or that you see your clients having in your prospects, in your discussions with them. So, thanks very much. Cloud Secret Exposed, what you wish your cloud service provider told you. You know, most of us go through our business life having a lot of experiences. Experiences tend to be those things that are painful, troublesome, you wish somebody else told you about. Our goal here, as part of Toggle, is to help you learn from our experiences. And I'd like to introduce the Toggle team. We have a bunch of our Toggle team here. So Toggle members, if you guys can go ahead and stand up. Turn around, there are most of them in the background there. We're here until late on Saturday. So if we don't answer your questions today or other things come up, feel free to just get together with any of us and ask away. See if there's a right fit, see if there's stuff that we can go ahead and help you with. And in the process of today and anything else that you engage with us, our goal is to help you avoid those painful, costly, troublesome experiences that go on. And now we'll go ahead and see if we can. So, predictions. In this industry, we hear them all the time, right? And I'm kind of one who likes to say that opinions are like noses. Everybody has one, but some work better than others. So, you know, I think it'd be interesting to go ahead and see what past predictions may have been made and how did those work out? How did that actually go ahead and show up? So, let's find out. Oops, helps if I plug in the audio here. You know, you test this stuff out earlier. Well, we were in here at 7 this morning, and it all went ahead and worked, so. There we go.
And that, my esteemed colleagues, is clear proof that the great pyramids of Egypt were built by visitors from another planet. And definitely not from anyone here on Earth. Woo! Excellent job. Thank you, Dr. Martin, for another provoking presentation. It is now my privilege to welcome to the Old Genius League, a world traveler and pioneer in an exciting new field, futurism. Futurism is the science of predicting future trends in work, domestic life, and science. Please give a big yodel welcome to Professor R.U. Claudius.
Gentlemen, I stand before you today to share with you my predictions for cataclysmic changes that are about to befall your work environments and indeed your entire empire. As you know, today, the most efficient form of energy for powering your factories is orphans on treadwheels. No. You see, in the near future, I predict that the energy needed to power your businesses, your factories, and even light your homes will be produced centrally by your government or even private companies. And delivered to your businesses over wires.
that we won't be letting our homes be whale.
It's true. Changes are coming. For example, you have been using the exact same methods for business accounting and calculation and computation as you have for hundreds of years. It's a living. It's true, changes are coming. You see, I predict that in the near future, all manner of business calculation and computation will take place outside of your business. Yes, it will be provided centrally as a service, and the results transmitted instantly back to your business. Yes, and it will scale with your business. You'll be able to run your businesses remotely.
Claudius, you're a lunatic! You've gone too far!
No, wait! We have access to multiple locations. Lower total cost of ownership. Better cash flow.
And so, Professor R.U. Claudius was thrown out of the old Genius League, never to return. Perhaps Claudius was just too far ahead of his time. Maybe he was right on time.
So, how do we think those predictions turned out? I mean, we're not going ahead and using orphans on treadmills anymore, but we do actually have pictures of how that was actually taking place at the time. And, you know, it certainly seems like we've gone to having power that comes over wires. And what about this business of working remotely? Well, you know, we've got at Toggle, we've got this beta thing we call the Toggle Time Machine. And because of that benefit, we're really fortunate to go ahead and have R.U. Claudius with us today. So please join me in a warm welcome, Professor R.U. Claudius. Professor, what the heck are you doing?
Yes, Claudius, is that you?
Great to have you with us. Supposed to be, right?
Are we hot now? We're hot. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing me here. What year is it now?
It's 2012.
2012. Wow, it's been a long time since they threw me out of Yogle. That was really embarrassing. So, can we kill the bagpipe?
We can.
How many people want to kill a bagpiper? That's a shame. That is my cousin. Seamus Claudius.
So I know that you spent a little bit of time here in 2012.
I have been wandering around for a little bit.
And talking with some people.
Yes.
You know, so how do you think things have changed and what's going on?
Well, I am amazed by the pace of technology change. So much has changed since 1889. So I do have a couple of questions, because I'm not sure how everything's working. You're not still powering your businesses with orphans on treadwheels, are you?
No.
So I was right. Are you producing power centrally?
We are. We're still burning stuff in order to go ahead and get that power.
Still burning stuff. Wow. That's hard to believe. And are you lighting your homes with whale oil?
No, we're done.
Done with whale oil, thank goodness. So there must be tons and tons of whales around now.
They're coming back.
Okay, making a comeback, I like that. And I have one more prediction that I made. Are you businesses still taking up rooms and rooms full of people doing business computation and calculation in-house by hand?
Sometimes it seems that way.
Still? Over 100 years later? I can't believe that. Is he yanking my chain? My ye old chain? So how are you doing it now?
Well, you know, traditionally, people have been dealing with that situation of having central management of computations in their offices, but some people who are kind of leading the way are starting to talk about the opportunity for businesses to take advantage of an approach that moves the computation out of their office.
I predicted that.
Yes, you did.
Exactly. That's what they called me then. What are they calling you now?
Well, we think they're called visionaries.
Visionaries. That sounds much better. From a marketing perspective, isn't it much better to be called a visionary than a heretic?
So, Professor, we really like to talk about that aspect of this aspect of remote computing called cloud in today's environment.
We called it smog back then.
Well, we're trying to work on a little cleaner air.
Oh, okay.
Less
That's
smog,
a good move. Good
more
move.
cloud. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about why cloud and why now.
I like the idea of this. I like the idea of this cloud thing.
All right. So I thought we'd cover initially just 4 aspects here to talk about that. And I know many of you are probably pretty comfortable with some of that idea about why is there cloud and why is it now, but yet I can tell you that in talking with resellers across North America, I oftentimes get these kinds of questions about what's the right time and what's it about. And our concept here is to give you some of the ammunition so you've got some dialogue with your prospects and your clients to help answer that question. And so for us, the first thing is talk about millennials. And that's all about a change in the workforce and the expectations. And you saw some of that, you know, going forward from your time.
What I tried to warn Yogel about in 1889 is the inevitable pace of change and progress. Someone once said the only constant is change, and people will be either taking advantage of those change cycles or being consumed by them.
Then we'll touch base about mobility and how that affects and is driving this aspect of change to go ahead and make cloud something that in many cases people are demanding. Third thing is back-end technology and tools have reached a level of maturation to make it possible to go ahead and do things that previously were really in the realm of the Fortune 1000. And then how the expense of running a business factors in and proves to be a real driving force for businesses today to go ahead and look for something different.
Expense was always a big driving factor in 1889 as well.
So the first thing we want to talk about is millennials. So by 2014, guys, that's 2 years from now, fully 1/2 of the global workforce is going to be made up by millennials. So millennials are the people who are born between 77 and 97, so that's 15 to 35 years old. Well, in 2014 it'll be 37 to 17 years. And that changes the whole aspect of the workforce and the expectations.
The question that I have is, if these people are entering the workforce, Randy, how many of them actually are the entrepreneur class and starting the businesses in their own image?
Well, a lot of them, I think, are going to be the people who are starting their businesses. If you think about you guys and many of the businesses that you work with, oftentimes these are started by people who are in their 20s, in their 30s, and of course the other aspect is who are the businesses hiring today? Are they hiring the 80 years old? Or are they hiring the people who are getting out of college, maybe had some experience? They end up hiring the millennials. And that's a different mindset. It's a different experience than what the business owners, you know, the traditional business owners who may be in the 50-plus-year-old category, are thinking about and doing and how they interact with technology. So the impact of the millennials coming in, guys, is that these people are technology savvy, right? They have smartphones. Are they willing to go with the dumb phones? they all go for the top-end stuff if they can. I mean, my own daughter, who's 14 years old, was willing to give up everything else that she has if she could go ahead and get a high-end phone. They're using this stuff every day.
Well, they grew up with it.
They grew up with it. They have that as an expectation.
I understood from some of the Toggle members who've been hosting me that these so-called millennials, this is not from the change from 1800s to 1900s.
No.
This is the 1900s to 2000s. That some of these people, these millennials, they grew up with so much of the technology that all their communication is through these devices, these mobile devices. In fact, they're using them in school now.
That's right.
They are communicating with their friends and family. They are getting educated through them. They're even shopping on them.
Things like this.
Can you really shop on these?
They're working on these every day. And of course this ties into mobility because the millennials are highly mobile. No longer do you have people who are thinking about working at a particular company and having their entire career there. It's pretty common for them to work someplace for a couple of years and then leave, right? I mean, many of you guys have kids. They get into the workforce, they're not thinking that that's their end position. They go into work and they're expecting to be able to use some of the same kinds of tools that they're used to working with as they went through school and in their personal life. And when they get into the corporate environment and they see that, my gosh, it's always this thing called a Windows PC, and they don't have some of the flexibility and they don't have all these applications and these tools, we're seeing that they are providing pushback to management saying, you want me to do less?
I heard there was another change in the home life here too, that you actually keep the kids around, you don't send them to a workhouse.
No workhouses.
So the kids are at home, they're with nannies, right? Everybody has nannies still? No?
Not too many.
So the parents have to take care of the kids. Sometimes they're sick.
Indeed.
Sometimes you have to be home with them. Sometimes people go out on something called maternity leave.
Family bereavement.
See, we didn't have this in 1889. You were expected to simply work at a company for a few years and then die. But I see things have changed a great deal now.
So, you know, what we're seeing, Professor, is that in today's environment, businesses and the individual is used to working in lots of places. They've got tools like their smartphones that can go ahead and do a bunch of the same things that the tablets do. They're working on these. They go through multiple generations. One of my sons is now in his third generation of the Apple iPad and keeps getting a new one every year or 2 years as new stuff comes out. The businesses, from the business expense standpoint, are driven by some of the stuff that they always have been, but now because of technology, they've got some other options. What are businesses doing today, guys? Fewer staff, right? Asking people to do more. They're looking for people to get that work done whenever they can, from anywhere, whether it's the aspect of pregnancy leave or family bereavement or taking advantage of flex time. We see the movement towards hoteling. Organizations are not interested in having to pay for bricks and mortar, which is really expensive. In the city of Chicago, some of the cost per square foot reaches $50 per square foot, guys. And so instead of having people in the office, they want them to work. You're finding a lot of organizations who put their sales staff or customer support people out on the road. All that means that mobility and cutting down expense is really particularly important for them. And this causes a challenge for those of us in the technology business to keep up with that pace that the customers are demanding, as well as provide the tools and the access to that particularly the millennials and increasingly the business owners are requiring for their companies.
That was one of the questions we still had in 1889, which was, people could measure what the output of an employee was, but then they started asking, what's the output in dollars per square foot of their physical space? And they started questioning what was the efficiency and dollar output that you could pack into a square foot versus the overhead. Are people still considering that today?
I think more and more are looking at it. They just didn't know before that they had an option.
We had another thing. In the 1800s, you couldn't make sales sitting at a desk. The sales were out on the street. You had to go visit people, sometimes demonstrate a product, sometimes make a sales pitch, and hopefully come back with an order. Are you finding that the sales force is back on the street, mobile, and trying to build relationships with clients?
Much more today. And the smartest guys want to go visit the client and make the notes on what that interaction was so that they've got corporate information available without having to come back in the office and then enter into the system. In fact, we see cases where people are transmitting those orders remotely, so they're capturing that customer data, taking action, so before they even get in the office, other people in the company are doing things to go ahead and help support that customer service or sales effort.
We used to call that real time. Still do?
Yeah.
Great. We used to say also that the sales are out on the street, not in the office. Is that still true?
Absolutely.
So I guess this mobility is pretty important to a successful business.
I think it's becoming even more important, particularly with the new workforce coming in who are demanding that availability of tools. And we're even seeing a characteristic today where the millennials are coming to work saying they want to work on their computer. They're not willing to go ahead and accept that computer that might be 2, 3, 4 years old that the organization is providing. Any of you guys seeing that? What about Apple's penetration in the marketplace? Are you guys seeing that your customers are talking about their executives or people bringing iPads into the organization or wanting to go ahead and run with their Mac Airs and stuff? We certainly we're seeing a lot of that taking place.
I saw two figures. Their fellow Bob gave me two figures that were very interesting. He said there was a recent study that 50% of all the households in the United States have an Apple product. That's pretty good. How many people in the United States now?
300 million.
300 million. I don't know what that is in households, but that's quite a bit of penetration. The other thing that he shared with me, a figure that they found that employees that were enabled with mobility were 33% more productive. You could actually get 33% more output of the employees when you empowered them with mobility.
Yeah, and here's an interesting study that came out, which was a study was done of millennials. I think it went up to about age 25. So it wasn't the full gamut, but they asked, if you had a choice between giving up sex or giving up your smartphone, what would you go ahead and do? Now we might laugh, guys, but this was incredible, to me anyways. Overwhelmingly, the choice was give up sex. They would not give up their smartphone. I mean, you guys have seen any of kids. My kids sleep with their smartphones if we don't remove it from it.
Apparently they are, since they gave it up for sex.
They gave it up for sex. That's right. So,
I hope there's an app for that.
So, I mean, if this is that important to them, what's going to happen when they go to the workplace? Guys, they're willing to give up sex. You think they're going to go to the workplace and work for some humdrum place that's not going to go ahead and enable them to have the flexibility and get things done the way they're used to? I mean, it's just a whole different ballgame, guys. So I'd strongly suggest that you think about what the impact is, and it's a really neat conversation to have with some of those older business owners about what's taking place in their organization. Because what happens is that those 50-plus guys aren't thinking about the different mindset of the people that they're bringing into the organization. And it will change the dynamics of the use of technology in these companies. And the exciting things for you guys as technology providers is you can be the thought leader for this, and you can be the one who helps assist them with that. And, oh, by the way, you'll make plenty of money in the process. Because change is one of the things that helps the cash register ring for you guys, right? So this is a huge change that's taking place. So we call this cloud, and you asked me, so Randy, do you think this is a threat or an opportunity?
Yeah, it would seem that all this change, back in the 1800s, there were some people for whom change was a terrific opportunity. In fact, I heard that even during the Great Depression in this country, there were more millionaires created than at any other time in your history. So, what is the meaning of change to people who are in technology? Is it going to put them out of business?
I don't think so. I think it's a time of great opportunity, but it is a time of challenge. And just like you saw in the past, moving from 1889 to now, there are plenty of businesses that are going to go out of business because they didn't go ahead and adapt to that change. They didn't go ahead and evolve. But there's plenty of businesses that not only survived, but thrived in that process.
You know, Randy, back in the 1800s, we had two kinds of people in what you call engineering. We had the top-line engineers. These are the people who worked with the factory owner to figure out, the business owner, what their output was, what their product was, and they would design all the machinery in the factory floor. They were really there for the long-term strategic plan of that business owner. And then we had a different class of people in engineering. They were mechanics. Their job was to run around with hammers and wrenches all day, just keeping these machines running, just keeping them from mangling people's arms and chewing them up, and keeping them running. And what we found is, as we approached the turn of the century to the 1900s, there were less and less of the mechanics as the machinery got more and more reliable. And what we had were more strategic engineers helping the business owner in his office figure out where he was going and how he could derive the output he was looking for. Does cloud kind of work that way in your business?
We believe it does. And certainly the guys who are providing that advisory service, they get paid more too than the guys who are the mechanics running around with the wrenches and the screwdrivers. So we really think this is an irresistible change, guys. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. Now, my personal viewpoint is that this is not Katie bar the door, this is the only thing that you should go ahead and do. I will even go so far as to say that I'm not sure that the majority of businesses will put their entire company up in the cloud. But I will tell you that it will be a significant amount. And it is your opportunity to go ahead and help be there. Be that thought leader and help people progress. So Robin and team did a survey of 1,000 technology resellers.
People like you.
And they asked, what was the #1 biggest obstacle to business growth? Overwhelmingly, there were 2 answers that came out of that. And those answers were marketing and sales and time. And I'm here to tell you, as a cloud provider, the right cloud provider is going to go ahead and help you address those things. I know that with Toggle, owned by 17 of the most successful MSPs, we've taken our expertise and the things that we've done over and over again, that we've learned, the stuff that you guys have seen as examples. Previous winners of the Better Your Best contests, things that we've shared, to go ahead and help bundle those best practices and develop the processes and procedures to teach you how to go ahead and not have to have the same painful experiences that we may have gone through. And the best cloud providers will do that. So in our world, if you're an affiliate with us, we go ahead and teach you sales, we teach you marketing, and oftentimes we're called on to help share that information elsewhere. As a matter of fact, you guys may or may not know, but Team Robin is rolling out a cloud blueprint, a special program that's trying to go ahead and capture these ideas about sales and marketing. I would strongly recommend that that's something that you guys all want to consider. I've been asked to collaborate on that and help craft that whole package. And it's that degree of commitment as well as experience that you'll see in the entire Toggle team that's available to you if you decide that you want to engage with us and be an affiliate. And Professor, as you saw, if people learned in the past what to go ahead and do and how to do it, it's a whole lot easier for them to teach other people and help other people go farther faster, right?
The same was true in my time. We always sought out mentors, and the role of the mentor was to make sure you didn't make their mistakes. You could go out and make your own mistakes, but to actually learn from the past and get up and running as quickly as possible. So that was the role of the mentor then. I think it's the same now.
Now, we talked a little bit about customer needs driving our behavior. And I think now, today, we see that more than ever before, where customers are asking us for things. And so those specific needs that have oftentimes come up as obstacles for your clients include the high capital expenditures. I mean, in your day, people had to spend an awful lot of money to go ahead and set up a steam plant.
They had to spend a lot of money, and if it didn't work out, they ended up in a workhouse on a treadwheel. So
there you go. Labor
putting
today,
their personal guarantee on a startup business was a very risky venture in 1889. How is it today?
it still is very risky.
Some things don't change.
We find that labor, in contrast to your time, is one of the most expensive things that a business has today. And therefore, that's one of the strong considerations that's going on. And as all of us in the technology environment find, when we go to the customers, we find most of them are accidents waiting to happen, right? Particularly over the course of the last 4 years, most of your clients haven't been spending money on technology. And therefore, it's not uncommon for you to engage with them for a managed service program, or if you're talking about the cloud, and have some element of change or addition that really should take place at their customer site, what we might call customer premise remediation. Is this something you guys are seeing out there?
Mm-hmm.
So, now, we teach a method where cloud can be provisioned with a zero startup cost. Because what we found is, as Gary Pica talks about, if we can go ahead and remove speed bumps and road bumps, then it makes it easier for the customer to go ahead and say yes, and this is true for a managed service program, and it's certainly easier if we're talking about for a cloud environment. So as part of TOGL's approach, we've got answers, part of doing the methodology and the processes that we use that help address these things, that make it easier for your customer to see that they have a business benefit by moving forward the cloud with you, powered by TOGLcloud underneath. Now, so far, guys, we really talked about a little bit of what I call Cloud 101, right? And there's nothing startling. We've talked about some of the background, just to give you some guys an idea of some of the conversations that can take place. But now we really thought we'd dig into some of those issues that are problems or issues with the cloud, some of the specific questions that we've heard you guys raise, and we've heard some of your end users raise. So common questions that oftentimes come up are things like, what about security in the cloud? I mean, how does that work? Because it can be a little bit of a concern for your clients when they're thinking about the data that's no longer on premise. Is this something that you guys hear? So in the security aspect, I mean, with Toggle, we have multiple layers, what we call cascading layers of security. And that extends everywhere from having 256-bit military-grade encryption from the customer premise all the way to the cloud, regardless of whether they're mobile users or whether it's something that's done from the office. Doesn't matter whether they're on a smartphone or an iPad or an Android tablet or their PC. We have high-end firewalls that are present at the customers, at our data centers. We're in secure data bunkers with biometric security and armed guards. Extends all the way through, and we can get into lots of detail about that. It also covers something that I think is perhaps up here as well. Well, it sort of lends itself in the security aspect where we not uncommonly get questions about compliance. So you may hear some of those. Increasingly, we find that happening with clients regardless of whether it's HIPAA or PCI or Sarbanes-Oxley or FINRA or a variety of other things. So I can tell you that in the cloud environment, we're completely compliant with all of those regulations. But as being in the technology business, you guys know that the primary issue is really what happens with the customer. What are they doing inside their organization and in their software? So those are things we can't control. But from the standpoint of infrastructure, we're all completely there.
So Randy, I have a question for you. Are you finding when people ask about security, is the cloud more or less secure than what's typically going on in their office when you come in?
We've never found a client who's got as significant security in the multiple layers that we use inside the office. And that's true for clients of mine that were multi-billion-dollar clients, by the way. So they love seeing that. Internet bandwidth. Clearly, internet bandwidth is important if you're going to go ahead and have your activity run up in the cloud. The good news is internet bandwidth's available all over the place. If you work with Toggle, we make available to you the opportunity of booking circuits all across North America and international at an aggressive price point, and you can make money and capture that business for the customer. But throughout the country now, you've got DSL, cable, Fios,
cellular,
T1s, cellular, all these kinds of things. You work with products like CyberOhm. You know, it's got built-in cellular backup functionality, so you can connect up multiple circuits to that device at very low cost. And if one circuit goes down, it automatically fails to the other. You can also have it set up so that you're able to use both those circuits at the same time. When you're using our kind of technology, where we use the 20 to 30K bandwidth for each session, it means that you can even take a DSL circuit and support a lot of the small businesses. And of course, when you go ahead and use a product like cable or step up to T1 and other things, then it even gets better in being able to support more and more people who are running all at the same time. But we do suggest 2 internet pipes. In fact, in my world, I find that all customers, if we asked them, they would tell you that internet access is business critical. Right? Don't you find that with your customers? And if that's the case, there's only one way to keep them able to function. They need to have 2 circuits. So when we talk to the clients about the cloud, and we talk about the fact that it's ideal for them to be 2 circuits, it's really nothing different than what they're typically looking at doing right now anyway, in order to go out and protect their business.
Randy, if all of their vital business systems, these data systems, were in their office, and they lost their internet connection, wouldn't that also impact their work anyway?
That's my point. Since internet access is business critical for everything from payroll to email to remote access to file transfer to placing purchase orders to going ahead and having customer orders and stuff, they can't live without internet access anyway. What about the cloud provider going out of business? Interesting enough, occasionally we get that question. And I think that any question is a good question. So in the Toggle environment, my answer is that with Toggle, there's probably considerably less aspect of Toggle going out of business than most cloud providers. Because guys, we're owned by 17 successful MSPs. Together, we've been in business over 400 years. I know, I was like Benjamin Button. I was born old and have gotten younger. One of these days, I'll end up being a baby.
Here's a secret, moisturize.
And stay out of the sun.
Stay out of the sun.
Okay, so we've already had multiple people who come from the outside who said they want to invest in Toggle. Even if something was to happen, some of us get nuked, I mean, Toggle's going to go ahead and continue in business. And how does that, by the way, work with your customers? You know, what are the business things that can take place that go ahead and may impact your customers being out of business? I think we've got a really good story there. Improving your profitability with a lifetime client relationship. You know, many of you are looking for a way to keep that recurring revenue coming. And cloud is all about that. It's incredibly sticky. I mean, I know that, Professor, you know some people with connections who've been running cloud for a long time. What kind of longevity do they have?
It's almost nobody ever leaves your cloud platform. Even if prices fluctuate and technology changes, if the cloud provider keeps their technology up to date and you're providing the high availability, fault-tolerant, fast response service that they expect, that's a lifetime relationship. Until that client retires or goes out of business for whatever reason, most end users do not flip from cloud provider to cloud provider. So it's an extremely sticky relationship.
From a scalability standpoint, I mean, we're all in business. We're typically covering a variety of industries and variety of size companies. With Toggle, we can literally put one user in the cloud, so a single user, solo warrior, for instance, and we can go ahead and handle hundreds of users. And if you're looking at a cloud solution, I would suggest to you that that kind of flexibility might be pretty important to you, so that you can develop your sales methodology and your conversations and your materials and your business processes and be able to take care of that breadth of clients and do so very cost effectively so that it's compelling to a business. We hear people talk about total cost of ownership and return on investment. Now, my personal experience is 9 out of 10 clients that I talk to about the cloud, money is a very subsidiary consideration for them. Literally, it's pretty common for me to have had the conversation with customers where they would go ahead and end saying, that's what we want to do, and then they'd say, oh, by the way, how much is it? Literally, okay? I believe that if you focus on business issues as a discussion point with the C-level people, and by the way, you normally can't sell to the IT guys, just like you can't normally in the MSP world either, right? That set of things that are business imperatives is far more important than money. So rarely do we find that we needed to go ahead and crank out the proverbial spreadsheet to do an analysis. If that's something that's important for you and for your clients, we're happy to go ahead and help with that. We've got materials. Oftentimes you end up having to get into a whole bunch of depth with the customer, and they may or may not have that information available. But the key aspect, I think, here is that the important thing, if you get into that analysis, guys, is you need to compare what they should be spending with what the cloud would offer. One of the traps that resellers get into is they talk to the customer about what the customer's spending today. Now let's go back. For 4 years, have they been spending money on technology? Not really. What possibly could you bring to the table that is going to be less than what they're already spending? You guys see customers out there who've got PCs that are 5 years old, right? They need to be making changes. They're not getting effective backups. They don't have a business continuity story. They don't go ahead and fully enable their workforce for mobility, work anywhere, anytime, on any device. All these things. So you really can't compare to where they've been spending. You need to go ahead and talk about what they should be spending to go ahead and be competitive and effective in the marketplace.
You know, Randy, we had the same thing in the 1800s. You had factory owners who would keep improving and changing and upgrading their equipment regularly, and they could keep competing more and increasing their output and their productivity because they could run the machines faster and faster. And Daniel from Toggle explained something very similar today, that you have two scenarios. The old scenario where people, a business owner that you might engage with, you could present a changeover in their infrastructure. And it had to be a big CapEx, which is good for you, right? Month one, big CapEx. And then the lifespan of a server is about 36 months, 37 months ideally. And so then 3 years later, they'd have a big CapEx again. And of course, your revenue would spike, and then it would go down. But Daniel explained there was a worse situation than that for your monthly recurring revenue. The guy who spends the big CapEx and then does nothing for a long time. That person's competitive edge is eroded. The performance compatibility with software is eroded. And do you know what it does for your bottom line?
It runs
Nothing.
too.
Nothing.
That's right. High availability and business continuity. I think one of the forefront advantages of the cloud is a considerable step up in the effectiveness of the technology for that business, in providing them with a business continuity story, in giving them much higher reliability, things that they couldn't have. I participated on Monday, with an affiliate in a conversation with a business owner at 5 offices, was looking at, in his terms, buying a humongous server, putting in a data center, going to go ahead and provide remote access. And he thought this was going to be the bee's knees, is the next step forward in his use of technology. But when we started exploring about uptime and what was that user interface going to go ahead and be, and what was really important to him, he said, you know, Randy, I've never even heard of this thing called the cloud. Well, part of this idea, guys, is you need to be the thought leaders and discuss this with your users. Can't assume that despite the buzz that's taking place in the marketplace, they even know what that is. So we talked about the greater reliability and the difference between having a big honking server and server farms with automatic ability to keep running even if a physical machine goes down, that they would not have a loss of a single transaction. With multiple internet circuits that do smart switching and huge pipes and redundant firewalls that keep on working and fiber channel redundant switches and all of the things that take place from a cooling and power standpoint. This is much higher availability and business continuity than they could go ahead and get on their own.
Randy, how important is business continuity today in the business landscape? Could you guys tell me how important are you finding business continuity? I understand there's been a lot of tornadoes and storms and brush fires and earthquakes and possibly a tsunami this morning in Asia. Hurricanes. I ran into John Batazity last night, who told me a story about the tornadoes in his town and how that became a huge differentiator for him, leveraging storage up in the cloud. Are you guys finding that that is a buying decision for people, business continuity? You could say no. No is an answer too. I see a couple heads nodding. I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, and with today's weather changes, guys, the characteristics that people have had in other parts of the country aren't true anymore. I mean, we've seen tornadoes and some of these floods and stuff take place in areas that didn't have that experience before. So you no longer have to go ahead and say, gosh, we're out of Tornado Alley. We don't have to have those discussions because it's happening everywhere.
Is it true, really true, that a hurricane hit Vermont last year? Really?
It's all over the place, guys. So the cloud goes ahead and offers that. I think it's a compelling story. Virtual desktop, VDI. I think that's one of those issues that some people express an interest in. I think it's kind of a little bit of a myth. I think some people have been frustrated by the terminal services traditional interface and finding that that's not a very comfortable or effective work environment. You guys see that? Probably, now I'm going to tell you that a number of your competitors who are doing cloud experiences, particularly those at the low level, that's what they offer, right? As a user interface, is terminal services. It's the lowest common denominator. When you go into those clients and you go ahead and show them a superior user interface, we go ahead and find the customers having what I call an ah experience. They can go ahead and start seeing themselves using that. We talk about the user flexibility that's available, the business control, the self-healing aspects and things that all of a sudden now can have your business owner say, I can live there. That's going to give me the control and the effectiveness.
Isn't that the essence of the cloud, Randy? A properly implemented cloud computing solution providing a consistent user experience and interface on whatever device they are using and whatever location they are in. If a cloud provider can't provide the same interface and experience to that end user across every device, regardless of who owns it, and regardless of where the employee is, then somehow productivity has to take a hit.
They can't certainly get the work done the way that the business owner would like to, and oftentimes that the employee would like to go ahead and do today. You're absolutely right. We also think there's a real play, guys, for virtual desktop to go ahead and take place locally. One of the things that they talk about down below in the hybrid cloud deployment is that it's pretty frequent today for your customers to have a desire to put some of their operations up in the cloud and have some of the stuff that runs still at the desktop or on whatever mobile device. Particularly for the road warriors, but it might be the graphics worker, and having an effective cloud solution that incorporates all of that in what we'll call a hybrid function will go ahead and help you win that business and provide the business benefit. With Toggle Desktop, we've got what we think is a superior VDI approach that allows you to go ahead and link into the cloud, have an incredible MSP-driven opportunity for quieting and improving your customer's desktop experience across Macintoshes as well as the Windows devices, common look and feel, encrypted, secure container, avoid data leakage, assist with migration, just all kinds of stuff. You can find out more information on that in one of the webinars or materials at the desk. But go ahead and have that full VDI approach there, driven centrally, connecting up to the cloud to go ahead and have the effectiveness for the cloud when it makes sense.
It seems to me, Randy, that goes back to the security question, which I think is on the minds of a lot of end users. In the early mobility model where people could provision laptops, that meant there was tons of replicated data floating all over the place. But under the cloud model with the VDI, where does the data stay, no matter which device they're on? Stays in the cloud the whole time. So again, that's another driver for increasing security. Under the old model, people were losing laptops, people were taking laptops to a competitor and working somewhere else the next day. But I think on the cloud model, you keep it all secure and up in a vault for them. That actually enhances security tenfold.
Printing from the cloud can be a particular problem in today's environment. And those of you who've experienced the terminal server stuff, you probably lived some of that, right? Everybody seen some of the problems with terminal services?
I'm seeing nodding heads on that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's painful.
And when we go ahead and use some of the better products, like we use Citrix ZenApp Platinum, that takes care of a huge percentage of those problems. However, it doesn't solve all the printing problems. And it doesn't matter if you go ahead and move to having all IP printers. You may have heard that that's one of the things that some cloud providers tell you to go ahead and do. It doesn't solve all the printing problems, guys. However, we've got some special sauce that does go ahead and allow you to solve printing problems, and we can tailor things to include the full functionality that you can get out of a printer, so that depending upon what your client-specific situation is, Toggle has the approach to go ahead and assure, I don't want to say 100%, but it's 99+% effectiveness in having speedy and totally capable printing from the cloud to desktop work devices. And that can be important to go ahead and work with. Migration and setup. You were talking with the guys from Connections, Professor,
right.
and you were talking about the fact that the same issues that hold true if you're going to be doing a desktop, a server migration to brand new equipment, a new operating system, and the degree of detail that you really should go ahead and capture. Pretty much the same kind of thing as you need to do in the cloud, isn't it?
It's still a server, it's still an operating system, the location of the platform has changed, the applications have to be installed, users configured, There's a lot of upfront labor there. How do you handle that?
We agree 100%, and we think an in-depth pattern process that's got a number of steps in is what's going to lead to success. This is true for on-site migrations. I mean, many of you guys have worked with stuff like the swing technologies for doing stuff. That approach of learning from somebody who's had that experience, who provides a very regimented approach, gathering the information, doing a migration plan is critical. Toggle has that experience and that approach that we go ahead and share with you with tools to go ahead and help make that process very effective.
David shared with me that a properly documented and easy onboarding process can cut the time to deployment by a factor of what was it, David?
Normally in half.
Normally by 50%.
Yep.
So that gets the job done quicker. You share the work with the Toggle people and get your client up and join the benefits of the cloud in, according to David, half the time.
And avoid a lot of the problems so that once that customer's live, you've already removed a bunch of the obstacles or the rough edges so you have a better user experience. One of the things that we've found is the best single source of additional cloud business is an existing cloud customer.
Yep.
Because when they're handled properly, they are so happy and so excited with what they're doing that they tell other people. And they actually oftentimes will become almost like disciples. We had a real estate firm that went out within the first 2 weeks and talked to 3 people that they did business and said, you guys need to stop doing business the way you are and you all need to do what we're doing.
That sounds like the makings of a referral program.
It does. It's very effective. Talked about the hybrid cloud deployment and how important that is, and I would suggest that that's important for all you guys to go ahead and keep in mind and work with, because you're going to see that your customers are going to benefit from that. In the premise-based managed firewalls, this actually stems a little bit from the discussion that people have about, is a VPN needed? You're probably going to have, with the more technologically savvy customers, they're going to be thinking about that, because oftentimes, if they've been doing any kind of remote work now, they've been doing it with VPNs, whether it's from home or office to office, right? Some of them even have VPNs connected up to their software providers. So now you're going to move to the cloud, and this question is, well, can we have a VPN? Do we need a VPN? And so on. In our environment, almost nobody has a VPN. There are cases where it's needed. Those cases where that's needed, guys, is if the customer has multiple offices and they want to print from one office to another office's printers, and they don't have these printers that are available directly from the cloud. And we've seen that happen. Or if the customer has local premise devices that need to talk to the systems and the data that's in the cloud. So they might have numeric control equipment. We've seen some old barcode scanners. They're connected up that somebody needs to go ahead and use. They may actually have a scanner. You know, like many people today have these multifunction products that are on the desk. And in some instances, the business functionality that they need to have and want to have is something that's going to require a VPN. If they need to map a drive, the best mapping drive still uses a VPN. There's another function that some of us in the cloud business use called WebDAV. Really neat, but I am here to tell you that that's not fully ready for prime time, regardless of what somebody else tells you. It works pretty well. In fact, I've normally seen it to work 100% of the time, but you lose productivity. It can be slow, and I've seen cases where it keeps asking for the credentials and you have to keep clicking on retry. Not a good thing. So if you have power use where people need to have local stuff and cloud things, moving a lot of data back and forth, VPN is probably going to be a better approach. All right, so having premise-based managed firewalls, we can provide them, you guys can provide them, and certainly you want to continue to have edge protection. Software licensing. In our world, Toggle's world, we allow you, the reseller, to provide the software licenses. The customer can provide the software licenses. Or we can provide the licenses or some combination thereof. You want to be careful about knowing that the licenses that somebody wants to provide are covered by software assurance, as we know that Microsoft says that if you do that, those can move to the cloud. Any other kind of software license that Microsoft has is iffy. My suggestion to you as a solution provider is you make sure to talk with Microsoft. Get the response in writing. They say that's okay, we're completely fine with participating and having that work up in the cloud.
My understanding from David is that being able to get the licensing for products like Microsoft on a per person per month basis is a huge advantage over the traditional model of big CapExes of Microsoft Office, for example, and the networking licenses, and then rebuy. How often do you have to rebuy these Microsoft licenses to stay current? How much? About every 2 years you got to buy them again? And again and again? What happens if you don't buy them again? Kind of lag behind, don't you? You find new employees have one version and other employees have an older version. That kind of hits you right in the productivity. I think there's a reason why under that model there's a fellow named Bill Gates who's is he a millionaire? What?
Billionaire.
A billionaire?
Billionaire.
And he made that selling you the same product every 2 years? Huh.
He did.
I gotta go now, Randy. I'm sorry. I got something to do. I like that model. That's why he's a billionaire and you're not.
That's right. Protecting your client relationship. Important in any environment where you're engaging a vendor to determine whose customer is it. Is it your customer? Or is it the vendor's customer? In Toggle's world, since we are you, started out as an MSP, we exclusively sell through the channel. We don't sell to any end users. We put in writing that your customer is always your customer. We give you flexibility about how front-facing you want us to go ahead and be, but you define that role. And I think that's really important that you go ahead and make sure that with any cloud provider that you're working with, that it still remains your customer, because you work darn hard to go ahead and attract and try to retain that customer. And at the end of the day, the customer is still going to be looking at you as having some responsibility. Let's make sure it's your client. So I think that's on a piece.
That same Bill Gates billionaire guy, doesn't he have a product where if you sell it, he ends up owning the relationship with the client?
Absolutely. So does Google. A number of the other guys out there are in that world today.
Wow. Okay.
So guys, let's move into a mode where we can answer some of the other questions. We'll bring up some other people in Toggle if we don't know the answers to those, so they can voice it back there. Jonathan Garber, thanks very much for being Professor Claudius. So we'll hand the mic around.
Well, I just have one last question to sum it all up. I predicted, if you recall, back in 1889, that there would be a new technology where all types of business computation and calculation could take place off-site as a service, be transmitted back to the business instantly. It would scale with the business up or down, that they could access from multiple locations, that they could run their business remotely, that they would have a lower total cost of ownership, and an improved cash flow. Based on what you're telling me about Toggle Cloud, was I right on that prediction, guys? Is cloud there now?
Yes.
Outstanding. Before we take questions, how many of you today are selling a cloud solution? Excellent. That is very exciting. How many of you are in here looking to figure out what type of cloud partner you want to work with to bring a cloud solution to you? About a quarter. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. Randy and I, everybody in Toggle, if you see a red shirt, they're Togglers. If you see people who are not in red shirts, because we ran out of shirts. But they're still from Toggle, and you can still talk to them. They're very knowledgeable. Once again, Toggle was founded by 17 of the country's most successful managed service providers, people who are in the same business as you are. And remember, I told you a mentor meant in the 1800s that you had to make new mistakes. You couldn't make the mentor's same mistake. So you have a lot that you can learn by partnering with 17 of the country's most successful managed service providers. Toggle was born right out of the technology marketing toolkit from an accountability group. We decided we needed to do more, pool our resources, and share it with our peers, which is all of you in the room. So at this point, if you have questions, and I hope you do, I don't know if, Nathan, you could bump up the master light switch, it's the one on the far left. If you could bump that up. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to hand you the mic. If you have a question, I'll guarantee you one thing. Somebody else in the room has the same question, so don't be shy. We are here to share our knowledge with you. Anybody? Can you catch? This is my work effort.
Hey, man. Do you have the ability to set up a partial VDI test for a customer? I have a client with a lot of desktops, and he wants to go all in, but he's unwilling to say, okay, put all 85 desktops up at one time.
In the 1800s, we called that a proof of concept.
Exactly.
I was just going to say
What do you call that today?
proof of concept thing. So,
Good question.
you know, as an affiliate, you get a branded website so that it shows up as being your cloud experience. And we certainly encourage you to take that to show customers. And obviously, it's not going to show their application, their data. So let's take it to the next step, which tends to be that proof of concept thing. Wearing my salesperson and business kind of hat, my suggestion to you guys is that proof of concept is a great thing to do, but you want to ensure that your customers put some skin in the game. So I like to call it the buy it and try it approach, which means that you make sure that you've covered all of their questions. They've said they're ready to go, but the only thing that remains is that they want to make sure this works, or that they would be happy with it. Provide the paperwork, get their signatures on the paperwork, and of course make part of that paperwork say that you're going to do a proof of concept for them. Because in our world, as part of our structured methodology for migration, we always take the customer through a proof of concept. We're taking them through a trial and test process to get their data up there, copy their data up there, have their programs running, show them how to work it, because we think the best testing is always done by the end user, right? They know far more about running their programs than we're ever going to go ahead and know. So you want to get them to put in some skin in the game and try that out. Give them a period of time to do that. Almost always there's some rough edge. Oftentimes it's from one of the software manufacturers. And it's good to have a formal testing and acceptance process that you go through. When that works fine, you're now ready to go ahead and update the data, affect any additional changes that have happened with the business, and have them go live. But the key thing is you've gotten their acceptance, they're ready to go, and this just becomes part of that process to go ahead and make that happen.
It's a trial period. The question is it green or no? Is it evergreen at the end of the trial process if we meet your metrics? What we found at Connections for Business is recent memory, I can't remember doing a proof of concept.
Actually, I was going to say that the way we structured it is very similar to the way that Randy just mentioned.
And I think everyone probably knows me. My name's Dave Bennett. The way that we structured at Connections to handle that idea of a proof of concept, because personally I hate them. They're usually a waste of time. And so how we address it is, okay, if the deal is $8,000 a month, and I were to go to you and you're my customer saying, I want to prove a concept before I pay $8,000 a month. Okay, Randy, so what you're looking for then is for us to be able to deliver A, B, C, D, and E, right? That's what you're saying. And if we deliver A, B, C, D, and E, then you want this opportunity, correct?
You bet.
Okay, so then here's the contract for $8,000 for A, B, C, D, and E, and and you have a 60-day out. We will prove during that 60 days that we can deliver and you are fully satisfied. There's no going back, there's no selling something after the fact now. And this is really what Randy was saying before. The proof of concept is really a hook for an out, but they are already sold. The mistake that I see too many people make is, well, we're going to do a proof of concept, but putting in something that's temporary, and then we'll take that out and put in something that's permanent. Well, then you just sold a temporary deal, but you haven't actually sold a permanent deal, and you don't want to make that mistake.
Or you skew it where you're test driving a Lamborghini and then you're delivering a Volkswagen. And they always have that suspicion. With TOGLcloud, typically, if someone says, but what about a proof of concept, and you can hand them your iPad right there and say, have you ever seen PowerPoint running on an iPad? Have you seen Excel running on an iPad in this environment anywhere? That's it. When you have enough momentum, as we've had in Connection selling cloud for 9 years, Toggle a little over a year, and you've got so many people in that system, chances are when someone has a question, will this run on the cloud? You know what? Instead of doing a proof of concept, why don't you just call one of my satisfied clients and take a reference call? Heck, they could share their desktop with you through TOGLcloud and show you how fast it runs. When you get into some of the line of business software, people get all, they think it's the only, you know, I've got a special proprietary Michelle Sherman software tech. And I go, really? What's it run on? They go, Microsoft SQL. Well, Microsoft SQL runs just fine. Oh, I've got this, you know, I've got a Renford tech. It's proprietary. It's only for morticians. What's the back end? Oracle. I've heard of Oracle. It runs. It's no problem. Here's 5 other things we're running on Oracle. Do we really want to? Because if we charge for a proof of concept or we start billing you and we guarantee the metric, then you're done. The question that I had, Randy, and this fellow was explained to me, what is the deal with people working in a restaurant started by a Herman Melville character? Are people in 2012 really working all day in a place called Starbucks?
They are indeed.
Wow.
A bunch of conventions.
That Moby Dick cast, that's something. Anybody else have a question?
So does that work? I mean, did that answer your questions okay?
No, but I'll take it off.
Okay, yeah.
We'd love to talk to you about that more.
We do
yes,
engage
the answer is
people.
yes.
Yeah, we do engage people.
You want to do a proof of concept? We can help you do a proof of concept. What we want to do is protect you from getting screwed on it. That's the short answer. Okay.
We have a whole lot of wireless devices, which we're all talking about. What's the bandwidth you need internally to make a bunch of wireless devices work? If you have a doctor's office with 100 iPads or tablets, can you actually get a patient chart to a room in a reasonable time frame?
I just want to say, if you have a doctor's office with 100 iPads, that's a pretty good client. Good for you. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, and the answer is yes. The tools that we use, from a bandwidth standpoint, about 20 to 30K per connected session. We're using Citrix ZenApp, which is the most efficient user interface connection, so that everything running up in the cloud and it just shows the screen input, the screen refresh back to the. So yeah, we have people who are going ahead and showing the patient charts and even graphic images.
There's two
There's
two different bandwidth questions there. The bandwidth from the TOGLcloud to the client's DMARC is fairly tight. You could do the math. We need 30K per concurrent connection. Plus, if they're doing voice over IP, what's a VoIP connection? It depends, somewhere around how much. Could be 30, some want 15K for overhead. You know, whatever they say. You QoS that at the firewall and protect the different amounts. You do the math from here to the DMARC. Internally, you have wireless limitations that have nothing to do with it being on cloud. You got 3 channels, right? You got 3 channels per router, and how many are feeding on which routers, and that. You have 30 devices, but you get. Oh, they're dirty. They're dirty devices. So.
Yep, and oftentimes people are doing other stuff on them. We also find that if you're doing wireless, it's really important to use a product like Ruckus that will go ahead and avoid conflict. We've had medical clients that we're in a building and then the pharmacy opens up and they start doing wireless and the guys up above do wireless, and all of a sudden now we got channel conflict happening and we're not getting the coverage, and the doctors are frustrated in some of the exam rooms. So use a good quality wireless product. In other
ways, you can take all the iPhones and put them on a wireless device that's on a separate VLAN and QoS that VLAN. So you say, yes, You could do that, and
Right.
that's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, if we're interested, what's the next step? How does this work? How does your program work? What's the...
I like where he's thinking. I like where he's
Is he a
thinking.
straight man?
No, he is not. We've never met before, have we, sir?
We have not.
See? Perfect. Okay, Grandpa, I owe you 50 bucks. No. I'm from 1889, so I'm pretty old. That is a great question. Right around the corner, if you take a step out and take a left turn, 2 tables down is the Toggle table. It's actually our Toggle desktop, ironically enough. That is our table. You can sign a form. There's actually, you know what? Right here on your tables with a picture, a sepia-tone picture of this handsome devil, and on this side there's a QR code. Since most people don't have, there's no wireless in here unless you brought your own wireless. If you just scan this QR code with your smartphone, I'm sure you guys have smartphones because you got wireless on. Scan that with your smartphone, and we've got a mobile device optimized page where you can sign up to get more information, get on our list, or get in the next webinar. There's a little thing you can just submit your information. You can watch the Yogle video again there if you want to share that with someone who didn't get to make it, if that was fun to you. So that's one thing. Come around the table. Anyone in the red shirt, by the way, guys in the back, the red shirts, do not let Randy Rowe leave without signing him up as an affiliate. That's that simple. And they're tall, man. They're big guys.
We do have a process of engaging, answering your questions. If you feel it's a right fit and the right time, you can become an affiliate with us. We have a one-time only small charge. We give you the branded website. We give you a whole bunch of materials. We engage you in a process of onboarding and communication. We're available then to go ahead and help you on your specific client opportunities and selling questions, marketing things that you've got going on, and we'll go as fast or as slow as you want.
Great question.
Because at the end of the day, we don't make any money if we don't help you make money, and of course the most important thing is that we're not successful if we don't have you obtain and maintain lifetime customers. That's what it's about.
That's a great point. Is that
I think the gentleman's got another question.
You have another?
Where's your data center? Out of Florida? Where's your standing question?
We actually have 3 data centers. We kind of have a coast-to-coast presence depending on what functions we're doing. We have a data center in Las Vegas, in the middle of nowhere. No offense, Tom. We have one in New Jersey, and we have one in Florida. And they're all Type 1 Class A data bunkers, redundant power, internet, biometrics, SAS 70, SSA 16, armed guard, that level of data center. It's not somebody's closet. These are commercial data centers.
Is there any redundancy, or is it just...
We can. Depending on the solution, Toggle has several solutions that leverage cloud beyond just cloud computing. We also have cloud backup, a product called Toggle Secure, which is a BDR type cloud backup and restoration solution. So there's that, and then we have levels of redundancy in the cloud computing solution as well. And we can talk to you about it. Grab David or Tom or Dan, basically the tallest people back there, and you have those, you want to get into bits and bytes, talk with those people, and they can get into that. But the answer is yes. Yes?
I think you asked the question, how do we compare with Level Cloud?
Yes, that's
right. You know, you're blessed by having a number of good choices out there. And these are all respected competitors, and we know them. I think that the best solutions out there will have a number of similarities to them. I think from a pricing standpoint, and again, to me, pricing really doesn't matter, but from a pricing standpoint, we're probably all in the same ballgame, doing point-click works, OS 33, Level Cloud, and ourselves. I think from a functionality standpoint, we're going to see a lot of those things that seem pretty similar, and we're going to use some of the same tools, because when we talked about tool maturation, you know, if you're going to be a serious cloud provider, you're going to want to be using top-level VMware tools. And Citrix makes the best stuff. So you should be going ahead and using Citrix now. How you then go ahead and deploy that and what you layer on top of it, things are different. I would say that the key differences you find is who's behind that organization. What are they going to offer to you as a reseller? Because guys, we can make a great bathtub and give it to you, and you can probably have a pretty good bath experience. But making the best hammer and giving it to you and saying, build a wonderful house, doesn't work so well. When you've got somebody who can show you what to do and guide you through that process, now you can go ahead and take somebody who doesn't really know what to do with a hammer and can end up with a house that you're proud to go ahead and live in. So I think it's that aspect of the mentoring and the experience and the processes that we have, the depth and breadth that we have, that ends up being compelling, at least as far as what I hear from some other people. I mean, Mark, do you think that that's one of the cases? All right. Mark's one of our affiliates. So I think that's part of the differences. You're probably going to find some other little aspects about how the business works or what they do or how, but to me that's one of the significant differences. Is that we're really in it to help you win. That's part of our DNA, and we have a very large organization to go ahead and do so. But if you see specific things and you want to know how does that work, or how, what do we do, happy to get into that too. Well, I mean, I think that sometimes it ends up being a matter of what you're comfortable with, and that's important. See whether the time frames, are stuff that works for you, the economics work, business processes. I mean, I go through a whole litany of things that could make a difference.
Can I jump on that? I mean, at the end of the day, talk to some of our affiliates, talk to some of our founding members. There's about 20 of us here today that have been your peers in the technology marketing tool in the Producers Club for a number of years. I work for a 35-year-old company. We're a founding member. About 83% of my business today, of my clients, are on one of our cloud platforms. We're very successful with it. We're very successful at selling, positioning, and explaining cloud. And that experience is why they invited me to share that with everybody ongoing in the sales and marketing side of TOGLcloud. If you look at the technical background of the people there, they've been deploying cloud for their clients as MSPs for years. So all I can say is I don't know the ins and outs of another company. I don't know it. I have nothing bad to say about them. They're nice people. We share coffee or whatever. All I can say is I stand in TOGLcloud for our experience in selling and working with our peers. Again, the TOGLcloud people have been best of best winners, mentors, keynote speakers, lecturers here for, David, we've been in this for years, years and years.
5, 6, 7 years, something
yeah,
like that.
So their faces you know. John has something to do. Oh, 5 minutes. Thank you. We were down 5 minutes.
My question is in dealing with the smaller clients. Is the technology there? Is it financially feasible? Currently, it's been a struggle to integrate the consumer-based devices, a SugarSync or a Dropbox or something, in to get some of the functionality along with hosted exchange. But in my research up to this point, it's been cost prohibitive for that client to make a jump to a platform like this or that I've seen from other clients.
It was historically, that's correct.
Yeah, so we're fully multi-tenant. I mean, we spent lots of time and money to go ahead and have a full multi-tenant capable facility as well as dedicated. So we support the public cloud as well as private cloud and hybrid cloud. What we find that's important, particularly for the really small clients, is to be able to fully embrace and exist in that multi-tenant environment, because when you can, costs drop, implementation times drop, becomes a lot easier for that small client to find that this is effective. But if we get back to the business issues, we can find that the small client tends to have some of those same business concerns as the bigger guy, because you know what, it's his money or her money, right? And that's not to minimize the aspect of the economics, but I don't find that it actually ends up being a bigger issue for the 1, 2, 3-man law firm, doctor office, architect, landscaper. You know, I'm not saying this is all professional, high-end professional services guys. They have the same business issues, same concerns about economics as somebody does when they're 10, 20, 30, 50 users as well. So in our environment, we can support those small users and get them up.
The core cloud messages we're looking at investment protection and scalability. And you scale from 1 up. Some people have seasonal people, some people want to scale down, some people are doing a startup. They don't want to lock in and spend all of their startup money on buying computers that ultimately, the computer doesn't make them any money. It's just a necessary tool.
One of the key things that
I'll just mention real quick here. On that specific issue, it is very difficult to go to a 1- and 2-person shop who has some kind of a dedicated application. What Randy said was if they can embrace a full multi-tenancy, which really means they're running Microsoft Office, and that's what they're doing. But as soon as they say, and they're also running Acme widget software, well, then you've got an issue. And in those kind of cases, one of the unique differences that I believe Toggle brings to the equation versus some of our other competitors, or our other competitors who are here today, are only an OS-33 based cloud offering, which by the way speaks that most of us have identified one of the most mature software platforms out there, and that I think is great. It's healthy. You've got some folks to look at. But as soon as you've got some uniquenesses like that, a 2- or 3-person shop, and you're dealing with a lot of 2- or 3-person shops, our hybrid cloud solution, which is leveraging a VDI technology, is oftentimes a better fit. It still allows us to have centralized management control, deploying out to the desktop. It still allows me as an MSP to provide support offering and reduce my cost of support. It allows that customer to have a much, much more resilient and better experience, but it's not the pure play cloud solution necessarily. It's a hybrid cloud solution. And so if you'd like some more information on that specifically, just catch us around the side and ask us about that.
Yeah, I think this is an important point that Dave just touched base on, this gentleman. Part of the difference is we're not a single point solution. I mean, you guys have seen Google Apps and Office 365 and hosted email and hosted websites and these kinds of individual point solutions out there. Well, most of the cloud providers out there are point solution vendors as well. It's just that they have a little bit broader view, but it is a single point solution talking about the cloud.
They're really traditional SaaS. It's a single software as a solution.
Right.
It's not a true cloud. So that's the long answer to your question. We'd be happy to talk to you more about some of our experiences.
But in TOGLcloud, we have a number of solutions, many of which tie in together in terms of voice, data, cloud stuff. Yeah. Right. So we can talk in more detail about that.
So that.
More question? So we don't go to 11:30? Oh, 11:20, sorry. Great, thanks.
Quick question.
Another question?
Yeah, I got a question here. Can you tell us a typical client, let's say 10 users, 1 server, 100 gig of storage with, Exchange, Office applications. What are you looking at in terms of monthly cost to us, from just from a comparative standpoint for MSP?
That's a great question. It's a fair question. There's a lot of variables I don't know off the top of my head. When we have some very strong quoting tools that we work with you. We'll show you how to use them. Always there to hold your hand. But we kind of have to spec them out because there's so many variables. Is there Exchange? Are we doing ActiveSync? Are we adding embeds? All of those things are available as a service. How many gigabytes are we backing up in their Exchange? Are we bringing in legacy? There's so many variables that I deal with, whether you're doing customer prem or cloud. So when a client, one of my clients asks me, so how much is it? I go, I don't know yet. I don't know enough about your business. So I don't know enough about even your imaginary hypothetical situation to give you a good answer, but I'd love to work with you on that. All of the people here have pricing tools that we can take a sample really and go through and go, okay, here's the variables, assuming all of these things, high availability options, etc., it would come out to about X dollars a person, and each additional person would be a known cost that you could present ahead of time. So helping you present that is something we'll hold your hand with and do. Is that fair enough? Okay. Anything else? We got to wrap up.
You got one more there.
One more, and then you can grab all of us. We'll be happy to take all the questions. Where's that person, Dan?
I thought it was Tim.
No, Tim was just warning me on time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there?
You had your hand up earlier.
I tell you what, Tim, are we out of time? All right, guys. On behalf of Randy, myself, the entire Toggle family, we want to thank you so much for your time and your interest. Please visit us. We are 2 tables down, the Toggle booth. Big picture of us, folks in the red shirts, and anyone else from Toggle. Grab us at any time, ask those questions. We are happy to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Everybody, 70.
Good, how are you?